recorded on October 3rd, 2012 in front of a live internet audience. This week's Design Chat is brought to you by Banana Camera Company. Get the Shake It photo app in the iOS App Store for only $1.99 and make perfect Polaroid photos from your iPhone. And by the Society of Typographic Arts. Student membership is only $12 a year, so go to sta-chicago.org to sign up.
Hello and welcome to Design Chat, the best live design discussion on the internet. I'm your host, Ryan McGovern, and I'm yelling and I don't know why. Every week we get together with some of the coolest people from the design community and we chat. We talk about stuff. We talk about their work. We talk about what's going on in the world. Tonight, Wednesday, October 1st, 2012. I got to get in the habit of doing that. The Obama-Romney debate, first one is going on tonight. So for those people who are tuning in, thank you for doing so. Our guests, the Mr. @Fringe Focus on Twitter, a.k.a. Rob Loukotka.
Yay! We can clap for each other.
Golf clap. What's going on, dude?
Not much. I'm excited that you invited me to this. I've actually been watching Design Chat for a long time. I know when I first moved to Chicago as a designer, I looked for any resources I could to learn about the community, and Design Chat was absolutely one of those. So when you contacted me, I was like, hey, the world has come full circle, and I get to talk to you, so it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Thank you for having watched and participated prior. I'm always excited to hear that someone had engaged, not because I pestered them constantly to involve themselves, but because they discovered it on their own. That makes me very happy. So the whole reason, and I've said this, I say this almost every show that I do this, was to reach out and be part of community. I live in the suburbs, far, far west suburbs of Chicago, so I don't get to come to a lot of events, and I was feeling a lack of connectivity, so I think this is the perfect platform to reach out not only to Chicago creative and designers, but to anywhere in the world, and we've definitely had that. International presence before. So I see people in the chat room are talking about what they're drinking. We've got Arctic Panzer, that sounds interesting, and green tea. We've got ourselves some whiskey tonight. Stone.
I'm drinking the Stone smoked porter with the vanilla bean in it. It's pretty good. Not design related, but it tastes good in my mouth hole, so that's good.
Quote of the night, within the first 3 minutes, tastes good in my mouth hole. Done. I will be tweeting that.
I'll say that again.
Go ahead.
Sorry?
You said you'll say it again.
No, I don't want to say it again right now. So, Design Chat was, I think there's a lot of cool resources online for people to learn things, but they're generally text-based, or they're blogs, or it's something where you're kind of learning about something after the fact, and somebody's carefully constructed everything that they've written. And, everybody sounds smart when you get all day to write your thoughts down. It's really interesting to talk to people that you respect when they're just off the cuff on the fly. And so I've watched a number of design chats, even like 2 years ago, with people that I thought who were incredibly talented, and just to see them do, a chat live about what it is that they're doing, and you realize they're just the same people drinking in their apartments that you are. It all works out.
So what are some of the shows? What was like a highlight show for you that you got something special out of? Who was the guest that night?
You've had a number of people that I already follow on Twitter that I remember you interviewed a long time ago. You did interview with Hydro74, amazing illustrator and just cool person that generally does not give a shit about like anything. I don't know. I like designers that aren't too concerned about the academics or proper ways of communicating with people, and he tends to just make a lot of weird animated GIFs or dick jokes on his Twitter. So I do the same thing. I don't really have a professional life. I tend to just let everything kind of mix together. So I make cool stuff, and I swear, and I drink, and that's okay.
you do make cool stuff, and we're going to be talking about that cool stuff. That's a great way to sort of like be comfortable with yourself in understanding your online presence and what that means. Like if you're not like personally comfortable with yourself at all, you're probably not going to be comfortable sharing your thoughts and ideas on the internet. Is that something that you experienced early on, that boom, as soon as all these different social applications showed up, that you just took to it right away?
I mean, it was weird. I think when I was earlier in my career, I had this vision that social media needed to be used to promote some type of like agenda that you had, as if the designs that you did were more important, or you wanted to project like you knew something or write a tutorial. And the more that I've used different social media stuff, the more you realize that the only value that people really get out of it is when people are being honest and having a good time. So I tend to follow people on Twitter and talk to people on Facebook who have a similar mentality to me, and just swear and post animated GIFs of cats, which I know some of the people that in the chat are probably fans of animated GIFs of cats. So I tend to eliminate any extra layers of bullshit on stuff, because really, any designer, this whole job is just you're sitting somewhere drawing things, making cool stuff, and there's a lot of years of education or whatever that goes behind that. But ultimately, I don't like spending too much time putting up a front, trying to act like I know everything when I totally don't. And most people are just kind of flying by the seat of their pants all the time. So.
Yeah, Fringe Focus, don't be frontin'.
Yeah. Anything with an F sounds good when you do that.
Yeah, I'm actually really bad at that, so I'm just going to stick to my white boy talk. Speaking of white boy talk, Daft Punk helmets. I saw that. I saw the photos of the creation before I knew the words Fringe Focus or Rob Loukotka. That was like 2 or 3 years ago, wasn't it? So for people, actually, fuck, I always screw up. Let's back up. Even before that, I got too excited. For people who are not familiar with you and or your work, give a brief intro, who you are, what you do, why you do it.
I can do that.
And he's gone, so I'm going to fill in the meantime. Oh, he's probably got the helmet. He does. Motherfucker, that's awesome.
I know it. Anyway, I'll wear that more in a minute, but I can't talk with it on. So Fringe Focus is probably just a weird collection of all of the creative things that I do, and a lot of that is design, which is why I'm here, but it's not always directly related to web design or illustration or anything that uses Adobe software. So, there's a lot of ways that you can have fun and make things that aren't design related, but still borrow the same kind of tool sets. So what you mentioned, the Daft Punk helmets, are probably the #1 thing that I'm most known for, only measuring that based on like my Google Analytics. More people check out my Daft Punk helmet tutorial than anything else that I've ever done, which is weird because I don't make any money on that. Like, my career is doing motion graphics and posters and stuff, but people all check out the Daft Punk helmets. So yeah, that was this is just a project that I did with my buddy a couple years ago, and we built a vacuum form machine. We built a hot wire cutter and cut the base out of foam, and we bondoed the whole thing, and then figured out different ways of painting it and making the visors. And so I have the Thomas Bangalter helmet. I have the Guy Manuel helmet. I wish I had that here to show you, but it's at my buddy's house. But yeah, and I'm actually, this is crazy, and also doesn't have too much to do with design other than the fact that I made it with my hands, but I'm going to New Orleans in December to a concert where a guy's doing Daft Punk songs with a brass band, and basically he's renting out this like concert hall, and he's going to play like 4 or 5 Daft Punk songs with a full orchestra and tubas and all that stuff, and I'm going to be there wearing my Daft Punk helmets, and people will be able to get their photo taken with me and wear the helmets on stage. And that was a Kickstarter called Brass Punk, which I can see Dan in the chat is talking about. So it's called Brass Punk with a guy in New Orleans. So expect in December to see some weird things happening where I'm drunk and wearing a helmet and hanging out with people in New Orleans. It should be cool.
That's badass. No, I mean, you can call, that whole project design, because, what's really interesting to me is when you're going through the mental process of, okay, I want to make this thing, because even if you're doing it in flat graphic design, in my head I can see the end result. But to get there, you have to map out the steps, right? First, I need to have this tool so I can use this tool to make that. And it's the same thing if you're like, breaking graphic shapes apart to add and subtract, and merge and all this stuff. So when I think one of the big draws for me through reading through that tutorial is how you had to think through, all right, well, I want to cut this shape, so I'm going to electrify this piece of wire. Right away, you're like straight up, Tesla, old school awesome. And you're cutting through with an electrified piece of wire. Like, where did had you done that prior? Where did you even hear that concept? And was it the first time that you did it?
Well, part of it was Google, and part of it is just your kind of a primal creative urge where you're like, how can I solve this problem? I have no tools at my disposal. When I made these, I had, I didn't have that much money to just blow on, this is a Halloween costume. It's not a thing that you're investing in to solve a problem for a client. Every dollar that you spend is technically a waste of money, but I loved wasting money on it. So I started reading about hot wire cutters and just trying to see what tools I could make for my disposal as a creative person that didn't cost too much money. And they said, okay, build a hot wire cutter. Basically, a hot wire cutter is a short and a circuit, right? It's a toaster. A toaster operates on the same principle, which is I'm going to take something that's metal and has a resistance and apply power to it, and it's going to heat up and turn orange and be hot. And that's all you need to cut blocks of styrofoam, which was kind of the base for building the mold for the Daft Punk helmets. And you can build a hot wire cutter for $5, $20. Just you need to build a rig with some plywood, and then I used guitar string. I just ripped it off of my guitar and then applied I borrowed my buddy's dad's transformer, put alligator clips on both ends, and when you run power through it, it just turns orange and hot, and you can cut styrofoam with that. And that's a really cool way to prototype ideas, because you get these flat surfaces, and I drew a top view, a side view, a front view, and you can run that hot wire cutter through the styrofoam, and you suddenly have, it's not a 3D printer, but you built something for about $20 that lets you template out ideas that you drew in your head in a matter of minutes. And people spend thousands of dollars on a 3D printer, but if you guys wanted to tonight, so you could probably build a hot wire cutter, get some styrofoam, and do whatever the hell you want with it, and it's pretty fun. You'll probably get some kind of lung disease, a little bit. It's not a good thing to breathe in. It smells bad, but it's fun to make stuff with. So.
Well, I must say, if you do try that at home, use extreme caution, right? Don't go out electrocuting yourself if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Ask a professional. Yeah. This is the cover your ass statement of the night. Don't electrocute yourself, because you heard about this on DesignChat, please. But
a good way to learn not to electrocute yourself is to electrocute yourself, because then you won't do it again.
Power was running through that wire. Where did that? You said a generator? How? What kind of generator is it? Is it hooked up to a battery?
It's basically a transformer. So you can plug it into the wall. It gets power from there. You don't need a generator. But what it lets you do is it has a little dial on it, and you can kind of dial in how much voltage you want running through. And we started really low to ensure that it wouldn't kill us or anything. But there's kind of a sweet spot depending on the gauge of your wire. For building a hot wire cutter. And you guys, if you just Google how to build a hot wire cutter, there'll be a whole bunch of people that'll explain this better than me that have electrical engineering degrees and stuff. But basically, run power through some metal that shouldn't be getting and it'll work fine. And don't touch it with your skin. It's fine.
That's rad. So
the reason that we're talking about this is it's not a design thing. It's just a tool, And I think that a lot of designers and web designers and illustrators, we start getting stuck in the tools that we have, which is Photoshop and Illustrator or InDesign, and there's so much more out there to make things with, and that's why I'm really happy about the 3D printer explosion. Is you can just start thinking of ideas and designing them and getting these schematics down, and now people can actually, you know, buy something for $1,000 or $2,000 that'll just print it out. And I know some people here in Chicago, they're doing really cool things with 3D printers. My friend Craig Clark, I don't know if you guys have met him, but he just bought a 3D printer and has a whole blog about how to make stuff. It's really interesting, and I like seeing the maker thing explode out of design. Design is a, you know, tried and true profession and makes sense, but making stuff that is handmade and exists in the real world is pretty exciting. So,
two thoughts on that. The first one, DesignChat Links. I want to tell the audience there's a Twitter account called just DesignChat Links, one word, no spaces. And so that's the account that you see putting links into the chat room. It's also a Twitter account. So if you're thinking back to this later, you can go to that Twitter account and see all these links. The name, we'll find the name of that blog later and post that for sure, because that sounds really cool. The only other thing, the other thing is, you know, on your topic of, you know, a tool is a tool, make anything that you want. We really are in this time where you can pretty much make or do a rough cut of anything that you want. I saw this video today, this guy who sort of got famous on the internet last year for doing a Halloween costume that used 2 iPads and the cameras to create a virtual hole through himself, has now moved on to create an app.
I saw that.
He made an app,
That's
right?
So cool.
And he's selling T-shirts, and the idea is on this app, he has different animations that you play on your phone, and that the phone goes in your T-shirt where there's already a graphic of maybe a guy's face, and then you cut out the one hole for his eye, and then you've got the eye moving around, and boom, you're wearing a T-shirt, and that's your you know, that's your costume. We'll find the link for that too later. But go ahead.
I mean, I think I saw the link to that, and what's really cool is there's a lot of, I mean, I want to just say Halloween costumes that you can make with that. I'm sure there are practical applications, but I saw somebody do something similar where I think it was ThinkGeek, and they had faked on April Fool's Day a Portal T-shirt. And if you're familiar with the game Portal, basically there's a gun that creates an orange hole and a blue hole, and when you jump through one, you come out of the other. It's essentially a wormhole through space. So they had come up with a T-shirt that made it look like there was a portal on your chest, and then your buddy would wear the other shirt, and when you looked at your friend's T-shirt, you would see through their chest into the other person's perspective. So if you're at a party and I'm in the bathroom and you're talking to my friend, you would see, you know, the urinal on his T-shirt, which is crazy. And they did it as a joke. Like, they did it because they thought it would be funny. But the thing is that if you have iPads and you have Wi-Fi with the camera, there's nothing stopping you from creating that exact thing. And I thought about it for a while, about different ways that I could make that as my Halloween costume this year, to get a buddy and just wear an iPad on my chest that is constantly streaming video of the other person. So you could be like chatting with some girl and he's talking to somebody else, and then you would see through my chest into his. And I think that'd be cool. There's nothing stopping you from doing something that crazy now, between, you know, iPads and iPhones mixed with all the tools that we have, like laser cutters and 3D printers. You can do really insane things really quickly, and I think that I'm excited for where the design industry is going to be headed, knowing that in a matter of minutes we can just come up with absolutely radical, insane shit and just act on it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking of insane shit, your projects qualify for that category. That if I had a file folder, I'd call it insane shit and put them in there. You can see Rob's projects on his website at I believe fringefocus.com. So let's start digging through some of those. There was this great another Kickstarter project that you were involved in, where you had done a trip to New Zealand, and you called it your biggest photography project to date, and you did a bunch of really nice video. I saw on one of your profiles that you use a Canon 60D. Is that what you were shooting the video with also?
Yeah, it's the Canon T3i, and then they just have a different name for it internationally. But it's essentially it's a prosumer level camera. It's not a 5D Mark III. It's not a 7D. It's not something that you need to spend thousands of dollars on. And there's two reasons for that. One is if you're going to be traveling and climbing mountains and stuff. If you have a $5,000 piece of equipment, you're gonna baby it. You're not gonna jump down and land on a rock and be really aggressive. And I think that's not good just for your mindset to be a photographer. And the second is that the 5D and a lot of the other pro level cameras weigh too much. And if you have to go hiking for 3 or 4 days at a time and you're sleeping in a tent and you're climbing up mountains and you're sweaty and you want to die, you don't want your camera to weigh twice as much as another camera that can almost pull off the same thing. So I'm totally into photography gear, but I'm not I care more about weight versus quality than I care about the highest level thing. Because if you have a really, really expensive object, you're not going to want to break it. And my camera, literally the whole screen is shattered on the back of it. And I'm okay with that because I didn't spend $5,000 on it. I spent, $700 on it. And I still use it. It's fine. It's just, a little broke.
Were you literally jumping off a rock and that's how you cracked that one?
The story about how I broke my camera is not as attractive as it sounds. I really just had it, I was wearing it on my shoulder or my neck, and I was driving a van on the other side of the road, because it's New Zealand and they drive on the opposite side of the road. And when I had left, we were going to look at some sea lions, and I just was like putting my bag in the van, and it swung off of my neck and then banged onto the side of the van, and the whole screen shattered. So it's not very exciting. It moved 8 inches and it broke. But everything else that I did that was way more insane, it did not break. But that project was partly a vacation from what I do as a designer, to see, could I be creative in a different place by myself living in the woods, and you totally can. But it was also a photography project just to see how good could my landscape photography be if I actually go somewhere that's beautiful to look at. Chicago is great, but you're really limited to these urban shots, and you have to wait for the right lighting, and I just got bored shooting the same kind of neighborhoods over and over again. So going to New Zealand opens up a crazy amount of opportunities, and that's kind of why I went there. But you can just see already how different going to shoot photos in New Zealand is from building Daft Punk helmets, and then making websites for clients. They're not related really, but they're all things that I want to do that are creative, that draw on the same skill sets or whatever. And I guess I'm excited by doing lots of crazy different things, and the hard part is trying to put it all together in some platform where people accept it and think it's cool. Because you're like, oh, hey, this guy's a landscape photographer. Also, he builds helmets. Also, website. Like, what is that? What? They don't go together. So I'm still in the process of figuring out how my weird things fit together. But I like buying different equipment and experimenting with it. I'm buying a laser cutter soon to engrave wood and steel and stuff.
Lasers.
It'll be crazy. Lasers.
Okay, so here's what sucks and what's awesome about DesignChat. It's already 8:27. We're nearly halfway through our show, and I feel like we've just scraped the surface of the cool things that we can talk to you about. I want to remind the audience, a lot of you guys have been here before. You guys can ask questions. There's an Ask a Question button, and you can either type it in as text, or if you've got a webcam, the cool part about DesignChat is that you can get on camera and sort of face-to-face talk to us and ask questions. So please do so. We're going to start taking those questions in just a minute. Actually, they're piling up, so I'm going to start right now. First one tonight from Mitch Goldstein wants to know, what is your least favorite tool that you still continue to use regularly?
Well, I definitely have some least favorite tools, but if you're going to say that it's one that I use regularly, I'd have to go with Adobe Illustrator. I don't know what it is about Adobe. It's just they've been progressively nerfing that piece of software to the point where I don't even know if I'm happy with any of the newer versions, I always end up going back to CS3 or CS2, and I actually have old versions of Illustrator installed just because of how much I like the alignment tools in there. And yeah, Adobe doesn't, every time a new piece of the Creative Suite comes out, I'm never excited about it. I'm always kind of bummed that I'm just going to be one, further version back because they're going to do something that makes it work less well. And that's fine. There are worse things out there. Like if you have to do a PowerPoint or something for a client, that's terrible. But I pretty much don't let that happen. If somebody asks me to do a PowerPoint, I'm like, nah, just find another designer to do that. I'll make your logo or something, but I won't. Not going to do a PowerPoint anymore.
Kevin Scarborough wants to know for Fringe Focus, are you planning on showing how to build your tools?
I hadn't thought about it entirely, but since some of the things that I make are tools that you can make out of other tools, like a hot wire cutter or a vacuum form machine, I actually built a really cool vacuum form machine, and I wish I had more pictures of it. And if you check out tested.com, you'll hear Adam Savage from Mythbusters talk about how cheap it is to build a really quality vacuum form machine. But I think, yeah, I should probably, if I spend a whole bunch of time figuring out a solution for making stuff, I would definitely want to make a blog post that shares that information, because we're all going to make cooler stuff together if we have the instructions and tool set to do that. There's no reason to keep that a secret. And so, yeah, definitely. I should do more of that.
Well, there's video questions piling up, and all three from Dan Shapiro. So let's get them on and say hi to Mr. Shapiro, who has not been on the show for quite some time. Whoa! What's going on, man? Oh, let me get everybody on. I'm not hearing him, actually. Hold on, let me go to multi-shot. And maybe I'm not hearing any audio from Mr. Shapiro. So, Dan, why don't you do me a favor and unplug your headphones from your laptop. You don't need the headphones anymore. They've changed the platform. And then, so now that you've got it unplugged, I want you to click on the setup button on the left. I know this is thrilling for the audience. There's a setup button on the left, and that'll reset your audio. And if that doesn't work, then you'll refresh the screen and come back. So give me a thumbs up once you've gone through the setup again. And if we still can't hear you, then I'm going to have you refresh. I'll kick you, and you can come back. He's refreshing. Okay.
The point is that we can see his beautiful face. We just can't hear what he's saying.
And his lion mane of hair.
Yeah. I like people with quality hair. I used to have very long hair, and now I don't. So I'm jealous.
So we've talked about the Daft Punk helmets. We've talked about the Kickstarter, the New Zealand. I was a little curious about. So I know, I totally get the idea of you want to do this big project. You're going on this trip. You plan the trip around it. Where along the process do you say, you know what, I need to do a Kickstarter for this and show a video so that I can actually share these prints with people?
So that project was a little different in the sense that I knew before I even went on the trip that I was going to be producing a lot of visual material, whether that was video or photographs. I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to sell the prints or do a Kickstarter. It was on the back of my mind because, hey, I'm making something very cool, and it'd be great to involve other people in this, and Kickstarter is a great platform for that. But I wasn't 100% on it before I left because I don't like the idea of somebody trying to fund a vacation on Kickstarter. I think that's ridiculous. And some projects on Kickstarter are thinly veiled vacations, and I don't ever want people to feel like the things that I'm doing are going to be that. So I was going to New Zealand for myself on a emotional, physical excitement level, but I also knew that as a creative person, I'm not going to stop making things. So I figured out what it was that I wanted to do while I was there, which was do as many long hikes as I could and get myself to the tops of different summits and weird places. And once I saw the content, the photos, like the places I had been, I knew that I had to get those prints out there somewhere. And Kickstarter is a great platform to gauge which prints would be popular. I actually posted photos onto Reddit and a couple other different websites. And if something was really popular there, then I knew that people would be interested in it as a Kickstarter. So there's tons and tons of projects and photos that I've produced outside of that haven't been printed, just because I don't want to. You can't start investing cash into that unless somebody really wants it up on their wall. So there's a lot more things that I make that never see the light of the day, but I knew that those photos made a lot of sense. And I'm actually planning, because that worked out, I'm planning a similar trip in Patagonia next year. Patagonia, if you don't pay attention to weird names for things, is pretty much just Chile and Argentina. But it's just a mountainous area on the southern part of South America. And there's like an 11-day hike that I want to do there. And it's, if you just Google image search like Patagonia or Torres del Plains or whatever, you'll freak out at how beautiful it is. And I really want to go there and see, you know, beyond just photography, what are some things that we can get from exploring that part of the world that's basically devoid of you know, any large population. It just seems really fun, and I want to go there and, I don't know, draw other people into that, because we can't all go hang out on a mountain, but if we can find some cool art project to do there, then we can kind of all be there together, which is cool.
That sounds amazing. I'm not seeing Dan hopping back in here yet. Dan, let us know in the chat room if you're back. Maybe Andrew, if you can screen him, you know, so we can get his stuff working before we bring him back on again. So coming out of school, obviously you went to design school, and you know, I wanted to get to the subject of how many different creative avenues that you've taken, not only taken, but successfully. You know, you've got the graphic design, you've got the photography, the video that comes along with that, and then motion graphics on top of that. It's not easy, and you've done web work. There are so many pieces of technical information that you have to absorb before you can start creating in each one of those avenues. I'm just a little curious about where along the path were you doing some of the stuff before school? Why so many paths?
Well, I think that a lot of people see their industry or their profession in a backwards way, which is that I need to figure out this piece of software, I need to figure out how to do motion graphics or a video, and then photography. And you're right, there's a lot of tools, and there's I think a huge wall in any specific industry that's creative, and design tools are just one of them. It could take you years to learn how to use Photoshop to make a website, and it could take you years to understand the inner workings of a camera. But all of that stuff is just a different take on these core set of ideas that work for anything visual, and that's composition and color and theme. Like if you know how to present anything visually with the right composition, and you know color theory, then you're already like 90% of the way there. If you're an amazing designer and you've been doing this your whole life and you've never picked up a camera, I can promise you that you're 90% of the way to being a photographer if you can understand the mechanics of how light works and how a camera works and how to control that information. And so that's tough, but the arranging the pieces in the frame and getting the color right and knowing what's interesting and what people find value in and how to tell a story, that's all stuff that as an artist, as a painter, as somebody drawing, is all related. So I never view a new creative medium as a huge wall that I have to spend all this time learning. Really, once I get the core aspects of it down, I just use everything that I've learned from something else, and it's fine. So I think if you start with photography, you could be a designer on some level. Like you understand at least the visual aspects of organizing maybe a printed piece. You could figure that stuff out. There's a lot of details with interaction design in the web that I think are pretty far removed from that. So I tend to not. I don't brand myself as a user experience designer, because that's almost research based and analytical. It's not as much visual and playful. But if you're good at the composition and color part, you can take anything and jump right into it, and that includes video. The only reason that I did any video at all is because I've been doing photography for so long that motion is a natural extension of that. And I'm planning on shooting a lot more video stuff moving forward, and then that all goes in with motion graphics and animation, and just keep adding to your tool set. And I think it's almost limitless what you can do as long as it's a visual thing. I'm a terrible writer. I can't write. I shouldn't write. I'm bad at like English, and that's my language. But visual stuff, I think you can keep building on it, so it's fine.
Grayscale Gorilla, been on the show before. Nick, I saw this video tutorial he put out. He does a bunch of Cinema 4D tutorials, and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Just 2 days ago, I saw it. He had taken a photo with his iPhone, and then he used a 360-degree app and took a 360-degree panorama with his iPhone. He used the original flat photo to map textures onto a shape that he built in 3D, and then he used the 360-degree panorama as the image that is shown in any reflections of spheres or anything like that that shows the atmosphere. And then he did this little animation where it panned through the scene, and this is from a flat camera phone photo. Let me repeat this. Camera phone photo. And he made a door open, and then all of these like ping pong balls fall out, and it absolutely blew my mind. Now, Cinema 4D there's a lot of sort of programming knowledge that needs to be involved in that, but the fact that, you know, he's doing this for fun. He's doing this because he's nerding out on it, and it's one of the most beautiful animations I've ever seen in my entire life.
So I think Nick Campbell is an awesome example to bring up. He's also another Chicago guy, and if you don't know about Grayscale Gorilla, you should absolutely check out his website. He's a friend of mine and an awesome dude, and just totally brilliant with the stuff he does. And I think it's similar to what I see a lot of people doing, what I'm doing, which is you're not stuck being a designer. He's not stuck being a motion designer, because the more he learns about Cinema 4D, the more he realizes he can take his photography skills that he's had for a really long time and mix that up with this Cinema 4D, you know, technical education that he has. Like, it's difficult to jump into Cinema 4D on day one. I know, because I've done it. And it's great that, you know, Nick is actually putting together a lot of video tutorials to help people get into it. I think Cinema 4D is probably the lowest barrier to entry for 3D design for most people. So if you're into getting into 3D and you really want to figure out how to model and move some stuff around, definitely check out Cinema 4D. It's a good tool. But you can start, you know, putting together all that stuff. Like, if you're a good photographer and you want to start doing, you know, 3D design, don't trash photography and leave, and you're not moving on to something else. Mix that, you know, together, and that's totally what Nick is doing, and he recognizes that. He also did some iPhone apps that are based in photography, like the Shake It Photo or whatever, and that's one of those things where, like, okay, if you're a designer and you know the inner workings of how to get an app to sell, and you know how to find a developer that can make something that'll make you money, then don't leave and just leave your photography thing behind. You start adding more of these things in. And so for me, building as many tools as I can, I don't ever want to just be a photographer or just be a designer or just be somebody that makes weird things out of plastic. I want to mix all of that together, because all those skills will kind of add together exponentially to the point where you can do things that you never thought were possible, just because you have a bunch of weird skills that match up, which is pretty neat.
I just noted in the chat room the name of Nick's publishing company for his apps is the Banana Camera Company. Look him up. He's got a few of them. Cross-Process, I think, is one of the other ones. Really cool camera phone apps for. I know they're on iOS. I don't know if they're on Android. Some of them might be, so definitely worth looking into. We've got another text question here from my brother, Patrick McGovern, who wants to know, Rob, are you familiar with Jamie Mansell? He lives in the woods and built a giant spider robot. I got no idea what that's about.
All right, so I don't recognize the name Jamie Mansell. I do know of artists that live in the woods and have built giant things. I know that there are some artists that are really into welding that spend a lot of time constructing almost at factory-like levels, crazy amounts of designed objects that are 30 feet tall. I don't think I've seen the giant spider robot. I'm absolutely going to Google it because that sounds great. But I mean, that's the type of thing that I'm interested in. Is not, hey, I made a new app to help you with spreadsheets, but somebody that lives in the woods building a giant spider robot is totally up my alley as a designer. So that's cool.
We're going to try to get Dan back. Oh, look, we got him.
Hey.
Hold on a
We
second.
got him and we can hear him.
I'm here.
Multi-shot.
Am I here?
Yeah, you are. Hold on a second.
I can.
All right, go ahead. Ask your question. How you doing, Dan?
Hey, what do you look for in an intern? Question mark.
In an intern.
Intern.
That's a really good question. There's a big backlog to that story that I would get into. We haven't talked about it on the show yet, but I owned a design company that did web design and graphic design, and we had actual desks and offices and people, and that company is still around, but I actually chose to leave the company that I started of 2.5, 3 years. This summer I left to pursue a lot of these more insane projects that I'm talking about, specifically because if you start committing to a really big web project, it eats up a lot of your time. You can't solve it. So anyway, right now, Fringe Focus is such a bizarre collection of services and goods that having an intern would be entirely dictated on personality or whether or not I get along that way. But when I was hiring people as designers, the biggest thing for me, since you're going to work with somebody 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, like if they have a really good attitude and they're fun and they're funny and smart and you just want to spend time being with them day to day, that's like half of it. If you're really nervous and awkward, or if you're mean or anything, I think people get into this thinking everything is dictated on their portfolio, but it's not. I just want somebody that's hungry to learn, that you can tell is going to eat up any advice that you give them. If I give you advice and you think that your way is better and then you just want to continue doing that, that's not really helpful for me. So being eager to learn and being just a cool dude that wants to drink beer is the best way to go. I know that that's not the best advice, telling people to be good at drinking beer, but your portfolio is a big piece that gets you in the door, but you need to be just a fun person to hang around with after that. And other than that, then it's kind of the luck of the draw. I've had interviews with multiple candidates where I thought they were both really cool, but you can't always pick somebody. And at that point, it does come down to, does your portfolio have a high amount of projects that look like it would translate well into my client projects? Because the bottom line is you're not working for me. Like, I'd pay you something, but I'm hiring you because you're making things for my clients. So I really have to think about how you are going to treat my clients and how your work is going to affect their work, because they're the people that pay the bills, not even me. I'm a medium to connect all that stuff.
We're hearing in the chat room there's been some connectivity issues, and we were definitely having an issue with Dan's connection. Sorry, Dan, I had to kick you, but thank you for asking the question. It's great to see you back in the chat again. He was also wondering about current inspirations. What in your world, because you tap into a lot of different worlds, whether it's digital or analog or whatever. Maybe it's a physical device that you're sort of living with, right? What in your world has sort of got your attention right now?
One of the big things that I'm focused on right now is people that use laser engravers. It's not. I know that 3D stuff and 3D printers are very exciting. I think that the extruded plastic is not quite up to par with the type of things that I want to make. But what's cool about a laser cutter is that you can take any design that you have, and there's a whole bunch of different materials that you can run through it, and you can etch that design into it, or you can cut through it. You can cut through wood, you can etch into wood, you can cut through acrylic, and if you start thinking rather than a 3D printer, which is really restricted size-wise. If you think in flat planes, like you can with a laser engraver, you could start, building boxes and puzzles and putting it all together. And one of the things I want to do next year is I have a line of lamps that I'm working on, like designing lamps for no reason really. And I want to use a laser cutter to cut all of those pieces out and then put them together. Again, lamps, nothing to do with photos, nothing to do with a lot of the other work that I do, but I'm interested in it. I'm interested in the tool of a laser cutter, and I think it's really exciting that you can get those and have them in your workshop or in your apartment or whatever, and make things. You can think of it that morning and have it done in the afternoon, which is really neat.
That's nuts. I've heard of 3D printers that are sort of consumer grade. You can buy them as kits and construct them. I haven't heard of the consumer level laser cutting. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's not something where I think everybody needs one, or I don't even think they're as popular as 3D printers at this point. It's just what's cool about a laser cutter is the degree of detail. So like one of the things that I did this year, which was to get rid of my business cards. I felt like every time I was communicating with people and telling them what I'm doing, I'd show them my business card, and it felt like this kind of letdown, like, hey, I do all these cool things, and then here's this piece of paper that's an ad, an advertisement for me. So I actually worked with a guy in Florida before, because I don't have a laser cutter yet, and I got these etched with laser, and this is my business card now, which is basically a piece of wood, a circle, and then I stained and sanded all these myself, and it has a lot of depth to it, and it just feels cool in your hand, and it takes you out of this world of just trying to advertise yourself and communicating. You have this really tangible object, which is pretty neat. And so I really want to start doing more of that stuff, where it's not just a design like, hey, I drew this black and white illustration, but I drew this black and white illustration, I etched it onto this piece of wood, and then I mounted that, into some frame and stained it, and then suddenly, this idea that you had is levitated way beyond something that you could just draw in Photoshop. It's this tangible object that you can mount on somebody's wall. And I used to work as an apprentice for an artist in Michigan a while back, and I guess I really miss in the design world having physical objects that you can see and touch and smell and that cut your fingers. And I'm trying to find ways where I can take all the knowledge that I had from illustration and web design and start finding ways to make my fingers bleed with them, which is good. So a laser cutter is a good way to do that. And I'm really excited by that technology getting cheaper to the point where you can, find one and buy it for yourself.
If you're bored of cutting your fingers with X-Acto knives, there's cooler things to cut your fingers with out there, and Rob is discovering many of them. So there was another project that sort of intrigued me, of course, because I'm part nerd, is the series of posters that you did for Lord of the Rings, which I found super interesting and super cool, visually pleasing and sort of like, visually stimulating enough to get you back into the moment of these stories, not necessarily movies, but the books. So where did they come from? Why did you do them? How were they born? Do they only exist on the website? Can people buy them?
There's a lot of answers to all those. So basically, I see a lot of people doing movie posters, and I think it's a really good exercise in finding the tone that a director or an art director established for the movie, and you really get sucked into it. It's it's The Matrix, or it's whatever, it's Star Wars. There's a lot of like visual candy that you can draw on from that. But with the Lord of the Rings, I kind of wanted to do something where it related not just to the movies, but also to the books. Like you just kind of felt the environment. So I didn't do posters that specifically were trying to advertise the movies. I didn't put any words in it at all. It doesn't say Lord of the Rings on it. Literally, the only thing is a big yellow circle to represent the one ring, and then the rest of it is me drawing the environments of the films and the books. So one is one's essentially Hobbiton, one is Helm's Deep, and one is Mordor. And those, I think that's a good mix of kind of the Hobbit, human, orc, areas, and they have different color palettes and tones. And I just wanted to, make a poster that drew on all of the rich history of that without having to specifically say anything. And a lot of people, when they saw them, they're like, man, these are really detailed and have a lot of texture on it. These aren't very minimal movie posters. And I was like, I get that minimalist movie posters are a really big deal and people make them, but it wasn't what I was trying to do. Like, I filled, some of them up with a lot of crap on the ground, because that's, I don't think that Mordor is a minimal place. It's a very evil, aggressive, lava-filled nightmare. Which is funny, because when I was in New Zealand taking those photos, I actually climbed Mount Doom.
Did you?
Cool. Yeah. It's just as terrible as you can imagine. It's just all volcanic rock and the worst. But I made those just because I really loved the aesthetic that Peter Jackson had come up with. I wanted to put my own spin on it, and I made them. And the Mordor poster is actually for sale in my store right now. So if you wanted to get the Mordor one, people like that, and I still have a few in my flat file over here if anybody wanted one. And then the Shire and Helm's Deep one, I never got printed, but I suppose I could if anybody was interested. I could get those made somehow.
I want to touch, it's almost 9 o'clock already, I can't believe it. I want to touch on one more subject that you started to get into a little bit ago, and that's that you had your own company. You had sort of started your own company and decided to sort of move away from that. I want to hear more detail about the company. Who did you start it with? What kind of work were you doing? And about your transition away from that.
Yeah, I'll try to blast through this pretty quick, but essentially, I was an artist in Michigan. I moved to Chicago in order to, try to make more money and live successfully as an artist, and that led to a successful design career, at another company. And I realized, hey, I don't need to work for these other people. I can do it for myself. I became a freelance designer, and after doing that for a long time, you realize, hey, I don't want to work from home anymore. I'm going crazy. I can't just wake up in my bed and try to work at at a desk in my house. So I ended up starting an actual design company. This is 3.5 years ago, something like that, with my business partner, Lisa Bunn, and it was called Collision Labs. And Collision Labs is still around. It's a web design and graphic design studio. It's very cool. So we built that up, and we did work for higher level clients and for bigger projects for longer periods of time that involved a lot more technical issues, and I think it was a really great exercise for me. I had a lot of fun speaking with different startups in Chicago and around the world, but ultimately, the bigger your company gets, and I know that a lot of people as designers, they think, I want to own my own shop someday, I want to have my own firm, and I think that's an awesome goal, and if that feeling is really true, then you're going to love it. But after I did it for a while, I realized I'm spending a lot of time as an administrator. I'm not putting my hands into the design as much as I'd like. I'm spending a lot of time solving problems that are totally necessary. The work was still very good, but I wasn't doing as much design work as I felt like made sense for somebody like me. I'm very hands-on, clearly. So the more that the larger your company gets, the more you end up becoming a creative director, and the job of a creative director is it's verbal. A lot of it is discussing what might be a good thing for a client or for a project or for users, and it's not. If you're a creative director and you like to think mentally like that all the time and not so much touching everything, that's cool. Then do that, start a company. But I actually want to hurt my hands. I want to chop a finger off and have to go to the hospital. And that's not going to happen when I'm, being the creative director on a project for a startup that has something to do with healthcare. And it wasn't a good fit for me mentally or emotionally. But I think that it's a good company. They do good work. I did good work when I was there, and so I made sure that everything is sustainable, and that's still moving forward. But Fringe Focus is going to purposefully stay smaller. It's not going to have a team of people working on things because I want to have, I want to do the dirty work on it because I like doing that day to day.
Before we start wrapping up, I got to get you to put the helmet on again so I could do a screen capture, because that's going to be our new cover photo for our Facebook page, because it's badass. Look at that.
I can do that.
Give me a couple poses, a couple different looks.
Oh, this is very feminine.
That's awesome. What's even cooler is as I'm doing the screenshots, it does the camera sound. Hold on. It's like, oh, dude, get close again because you see the reflection of the screen. That's awesome. Cool. Thank you for doing that.
Oh man, it's hot in there.
It's hot.
That's part of the problem with that is you also, as Daft Punk, you have to wear a leather suit. And when you have that helmet on and a leather suit, you're a sweaty individual. It's not good.
Another iPad helmet project that I saw. This guy took a Mac, an original Mac, you know, that kind of looks. It's all the all-in-one Mac, and he took the guts out of it. You know, the 80s Mac, and he put an iPad in it, and he wore that as a helmet. And so as he's DJing, he's actually a DJ. He wears that thing as a helmet.
I saw that.
The video that's playing on the iPad
YouTube.
linked up to the video that's playing in his environment, and it was mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's very cool. You should definitely throw a link up to that at some point because it's a pretty neat video to watch.
I'll have to go find it. Yeah, it was
like
badass. All right.
Down.
It's 9 o'clock. We're up the hour. I'm always amazed at how
Dude, that went
quickly
very fast.
it blows by because it's so fun, you know, sitting around and bullshitting about this and talking about all these different types of cool work. Rob, you are more than welcome to come join us again anytime. Next week we are off. It's actually my 4th wedding anniversary, so me and my lady are going to go out. But thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But then we're back the week after that, and I have the worst memory in the world, so I'm not remembering her name. But she's a designer at Twitter right now, and I want to say her name is
Samantha Warren.
I'm loading it right now. I'm going to tell you guys this great person's name who's going to be on the show 2 weeks from today, if the page loads for me, which it's freaking not. I'll get it in a second. But yeah, so that's 2 weeks from now. Next week we're off. I'm in the middle of, I'm almost done editing our cusp video from 2 weeks ago now, and I've got tonight and the night before. So there's lots of the podcasts coming out in the next week or so. And again, the page is not loading. I'm so sorry, guys. I'll tweet it out later. No disrespect. I just have a horrible memory. Dan Shapiro, hey, I just met you. This is crazy, but here's my handle, the Torpedo Vegas. So Skype me, maybe? Dan, you're awesome. You cracked me up. Thank you again for asking a video question. He is. Rob, bravo. It was a pleasure having you, and thank you again for taking the time.
Yeah, anytime. I'm doing a bunch of weird stuff this year. Like I said, my job's only going to get weirder, so check out the Fringe Focus website or follow me on Twitter at Fringe Focus. It's a really easy way to stay on top of all the crazy things I'm going to do, and I promise that it'll get more strange than this.
That is a good promise to make. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon. Follow him on Twitter at Fringe Focus. Good night. Bye.
Thanks.